Hey, we're going to continue our talk as I have the last couple of videos in the book of Daniel. We're going to be in Daniel chapter 6, probably the most famous chapter, the most famous story in the book of Daniel. There was a first grader, stood in front of his classroom, made a speech about what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he said, you know what, I want to be a lion tamer. He said, I'm going to walk into the cage with all the fierce lions, and they'll roar, and then they'll roar, and then maybe on second thought, I'll have my mom go in there with me. Now, he suddenly decided that he wanted his mom to go with him because being surrounded by scarce and or scary and fierce lions is pretty intimidating. In fact, it was downright dangerous. Back in 1898, two male lions stalked a railroad construction crew in Uganda. And they were believed to have killed about 135 victims. Then in 1932, a pride of lions went on a killing spree that left 1,500 men, women, and children dead. Lions, to say the least, are dangerous animals. Now, they don't ordinarily kill people, but if there's nothing else to eat, then people are on the menu. So in Babylon, the king apparently kept a few lions around to do just that. If somebody angered him, the offending parties would become the main course on the menu. Now, kids love this story. It has everything. It has danger, it has adventure, it has suspense, and it has a really cool ending. In fact, someone said this is one of the most beloved stories in all the Bible. And I would agree with that. So let's take a look what it says. There were some men that, Daniel, he'd been around for a while. He was probably, later in life, in his 70s at this point maybe. And he'd been around a while, and these people were fed up with him, these other advisors, I guess, to the king. And it says, finally, in verse 5 of Daniel 6, these men said, we'll never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God. So these administrators and satraps went as a group to the king and said, may King Darius live forever. The royal administrators, bureaucrats, satraps, advisors, governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days, except to you, your majesty, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now your majesty issued a decree and put it in writing so it cannot be altered in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. So King Darius put the decree into writing. Now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened towards Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and he prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Then these men went as a group and found Daniel praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or human being except to you, your majesty, would be thrown into the lion's den? Well, this troubled King Darius because he really liked Daniel. Daniel was a great advisor. Daniel was a godly man, and Daniel was someone who he wanted around, and so it's really troubled him, but he passed the law, and that's what had to happen. And so they put Daniel in the den of lions, and picking back up in verse 17, it says, a stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring, with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he came to the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? Let's see what happens. Daniel answered, may the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done anything wrong before you, your majesty. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in his God. Now that's nice. That's a great story. But why? Why is the story even in the Bible? That's a question. It is a fun story. It's a great story. Why is it even in there? And I think that's how we need to start reading the Bible, is especially in the Old Testament. Is why is this in here? Why is this included? Even in the New Testament. I've often said, the Gospels, everything that's in the Gospels are there for a reason. They tell a story, and you want to know why they're in there. And so why is the story in the Bible? Why did God put it in here for us to read in the first place? Well, the first thing I think we can learn from this is that this is a story about weakness. Yeah. What could Daniel do about his situation? Nothing. the king passed this. Of course, he was really kind of tricked into passing this edict, but he passed this, and what it said had to come to pass, and Daniel couldn't do anything about it, and so he was put into the den of lions. So he really couldn't do anything about this situation. The cool thing is this situation made it all the way to Hebrews. It says, what more should I say in Hebrews 11 about, this is the faith chapter. I do not have time to tell you about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, about David, Samuel, and who? The prophets. Daniel's one of those. Who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised. Who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword. Whose weakness was turned to strength, and who had become powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Yeah. This is a story about weakness. You know what? That's why I went and prayed in the first place. God, this is troubling me. I have to follow you, but I have to follow the king. What do I do? And so he prayed to God for help. And I guarantee you one thing. He had seen all this stuff go on. We've been talking in the past couple of videos about the stuff that happened to Nebuchadnezzar, the stuff that happened to Belshazzar, the stuff that happened with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the stuff that happened whenever they refused to eat the food. So he had seen all this stuff happen, and maybe he thought, you know what? God has brought me thus far. Maybe it's time. Maybe this is it for me. I don't know. But he trusted, and his weakness is what made him strong. His weakness turned into strength. In 2 Corinthians 12, he said, this is the Lord talking to Paul, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. What that means is, God, I can't do it. I can't do this on my own. You're going to have to step in and do this for me. And essentially, that's what Daniel was saying. God, I can't. This is a powerful ruler. What he says goes. And I want to trust that your hand is in this. So I trust you with my life. And his weakness was made strong. And God's power was made perfect in his weakness. So this is a story about weakness. But also, in that weakness showed courage, because this is a story about courage. Yeah, he was going to die. That was back in chapter 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were going to die. And in chapter 2, if they didn't interpret Nebuchadnezzar's dream, all the wise men in Babylon, they were going to die. Chapter 1, if they ate the food or didn't eat the food, and then they ate the food that that the Lord said that they should eat, and they didn't look healthy or whatever, guess what? They were going to die because they went against what the king said. Well, he went against what the king said, and he was going to die, and he knew the law was the law. He knew that they were setting him up, but he still decided to do, you know what? I've got to do what God wants me to do. Psalm says, in vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves. You see, he understood that, you know what, God, my life is not my own. My life is yours. You're the one who gives me food to eat. You're the one that grants me rest. You're the one that grants the air for me to breathe in my nostrils. So I give it all to you. I love what Deuteronomy says. In Deuteronomy 36, it says, be strong and courageous. I love that. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. This is something that I think we could use more of right now, or verses like these. and paying attention to what it says, because there is a lot of heartache going on right now. There's a lot of mistrust going on, especially throughout the church. People are mistrusting their leaders. They're not trusting the government, really, because the church really cannot meet right now in April in 2020, and there's a lot of mistrust. But here's the thing: be strong and courageous, because God's got this. I think that's the whole point of the story, really the whole point of the book of Daniel. And we're going to get into we're going to take a break for Good Friday, but we're going to get into some things in the last half of the book where you really realize, God does have this, or I don't have a chance in the world. Look at what Jesus says. Love this passage. Jesus says, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul." Amen. "Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell." Notice that's capitalized. "Are not two sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are numbered. So do not be afraid. You're worth more than many sparrows. Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge you, or acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven." Yeah. Be courageous. Be courageous, because the God that is your God is the God of angel armies. And who do we have to fear whenever He's at our side? Who do we have to fear whenever He goes ahead of us into battle? Are not the sparrows. Are not two sparrows sold, and yet one of them is outside the Father's care. And aren't we worth more than sparrows? Be courageous. And here's the thing. The last thing we can learn from this. It's a story that's going to change your life, because here's the thing. When you stand up for God, He's going to stand up for you. That's what Jesus was saying. When you stand up for God, He's going to stand up for you. Never be afraid to stand up for Him. He's going to notice. God's watching to see if you have enough faith to put Him first in a world that's often hostile to our faith. I purposefully did not read this verse yet. Then King Darius, in verse 25, wrote to all the nations and peoples of every language in all the earth, "May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For He is the living God, and He endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and He saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." That's the same God we serve. And what does He say? He says that He endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. That was true then. It's true when Jesus walked the earth. It is true now. So, if you're troubled right now, hey, His kingdom will not be destroyed, and He endures forever. If you're worried right now, hey, His kingdom will not be destroyed, and He endures forever. If you're struggling, if you're worried about not being able to go to church, if you're worried about this virus, if you're worried about the economic crisis, hey, He is the living God. He endures forever, and His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. Put your faith and hope and trust in that guy. God bless.